Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be effortless sex, dating, love, and relationships. Well, I've got 3 emails I'm going to go through with you today, and all 3 of them are detailing success that guys have been having applying the things that I teach in my book and obviously in the countless videos that I've done at this point. And the 3rd email that I'm going to go through with you today is an update from the guy who I've been coaching for a couple of months now, who went out on a date last week. I discussed his situation in the video that I did last week called Kissing, Touching, and Sexual Advances. So you'll get to see he had a second date with her and had a really great experience. So I know a couple of you sent me emails and made comments you'd like to hear some follow-up what happens with these guys. So I got some follow-up. Good story. So before I get into the first email, I obviously wrote a quote on this topic I want to share with you, and then we're going to jump right in. And the quote says, "It is your birthright to be loved by someone you love and adore and to have a life full of effortless sex, dating, love, and relationships. The only thing that really gets in the way of having what you want romantically in life is the story that you tell yourself of why you can't have it. If you don't think you are deserving of what you want in any area of your life, you will act and speak in ways that are congruent with that limiting and inaccurate belief. Start to think from the end regarding having what you want in life. In other words, how would you act, speak, and behave differently if you had more potential lovers, friends, jobs, money, and opportunities than you could handle? You would be more discerning, picky, and would accept only the very best and never settle. Why? Because you don't have to. You must become the type of person you want to attract and act as if the life you really want is already a foregone conclusion at some point in the future. Therefore, you would simply live your life by taking the necessary actions moment by moment without any worry about things working out in the future, because you would know it is simply a matter of time, efficient and effective focus, refinement of your approach along the way, and repetition to eventually creating your dream life." So let's go ahead and start off with the first guy's email. He says, "Hey Coach, I hope you have been great." I am. Thank you for asking. "I just want to thank you for how much your book has changed my life. I used to be a weak guy who let girls walk all over me and never stood up for myself. I broke up with my passive-aggressive ex in May of this year. Then I found out about your work and I started studying it. So far, I have gone over your book 3 times already, and I have taken notes each time. Now I already found the girl of my dreams who knocks my socks off." Well, that's fucking pretty quick. May, this is, what are we in, August now? So it's 3-4 months later? Good fucking job. He says, "Before I go into details of how effectively I applied things in your book, I want to tell you the result first. Just 16 days after our first date, she already brought up the topic of being exclusive." That's pretty quick. One thing I would say, watch out. This could be, you could be dating a woman who's a little insecure and a little needy herself. And that's the thing. You see the flip side of this. If you've been a guy or a woman who has had tendency to do that, is that when you start to balance out your rough edges, so to speak, you start to realize how many other people are really screwed up. And it turns, their behavior that you used to exhibit turns you off when you see it in other people. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like the old Bob Seger song, "I wish I didn't know now what I did know then." He continues on, "I met this girl on Hot or Not. After we were connected, I sent her a greeting message and we chatted for about 5 minutes. She told me that she's going to be a freshman in my college, which I have attended for 3 years already." Dude, you're pretty young. And this is probably just the first of many great loves of your life that you're going to have. So just keep that in mind, because you're new to all this stuff. But I think it's great that you're having all this success. He says, "By the way, I'm 22 and she's 19. Then she suddenly stopped replying to my messages. The action I took was to walk away like I didn't care, because what came to mind was that she might be testing if I am a needy guy. Absolutely, it's totally possible. Or she could have been hooking up with some other dude, could have been an ex-boyfriend. You never know. That's why it's so important, the analogy of like playing tennis. You hit the ball over the net, she doesn't hit it back. What do? You wait for her to hit it back, and then you move on with your life, and you start dating other women as if you're never going to hear from her again. And so, what happens? After 3 weeks of silence, she finally messaged me and told me she was sorry that it took so long to reply. As soon as she messaged me, I instantly assumed she was expecting me to ask her out. Being direct, being decisive, getting right to the fucking point. What do I teach in my book? If a woman reaches out to you, what does it mean? You must assume that she wants to see you. Make a fucking date. Get right to the point, which she obviously did. He says, and I was very straightforward and asked her when she will be free to meet up for a drink. I've heard that somewhere. After she gave me her available times, I made a definite date with her. Definite date means you have a definite day, definite time, and a definite place to get together, either meet or to pick her up. He says, then we both showed up for our first date as we arranged. We went to a quiet restaurant, which was perfect for talking. Great first date kind of idea. He says, before the date, I reviewed, because at the end of the day, she likes you, you like her, and you literally just have to not talk about it out of sleeping with you. He says, I reviewed some of the questions to ask on the first date that you provide in your video. I think the title of it was Great First Date Conversations That Build Attraction. So if you Google Corey Wayne, Great First Date Questions That Build Attraction, that'll come up. I also reference that video in my book for your convenience. He says, during the date, I tried my best to tell her as little as possible about myself, but to ask her and to let her talk as much as possible. Remember, women say about 8,000 words a day. Guys tend to say about 2,000. It's like the 80-20 rule. That's why I say let women do 80% of the talking. I mean, women just naturally are going to talk more. That's the way they are. I didn't design them that way. It's the way they are. And with that piece of wisdom, you can make things really easy. He says, overall, I did 40% of the talking and she did the rest. I wasn't pleased with my performance, though, because I was a little bit nervous. Hey, that's okay. It's going to happen. He says, but we had a great time together and we chatted for 4 hours. After I drove her back to her car, I went for the kiss. I looked at her eyes, and then I looked at her lips, and then back into her eyes again. Obviously, just like I talk about in the book. He says, realizing she was doing the same thing, I didn't hesitate and we made out in my car. When a woman's looking at your lips like that, it means I'm ready to kiss you, big boy. Be the man, make a fucking move. Good fucking job, dude. He says, at the end of the night, she texted me to tell me that she had a great time, and I just replied, me too, good night. Perfect response for that. He says, after the first date, I tried to make her wonder about me by giving her space. Remember, you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. It's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. That's why it's always best to just start off with one date per week and see what happens. See if she reciprocates. By the time you get in touch with her in the following week, she's probably starting to wonder about you and wonder if it was just one date and that's it. And when you call her, she's excited to hear from you. He says, so I didn't contact her at all, but she didn't contact me either. Hence, it's the man's job once a week to start the courtship. Usually by the second or third date, the woman feels comfortable enough and she likes you enough and her attraction has grown enough to where now she's reaching out to you. And then at that point, you don't really have to reach out to her anymore after that because she's going to reach out every couple of days, and when she does, you just make dates. And as her attraction level goes and you continue to hang out, have fun, and hook up and only focus on that, she's going to call you more and more and text you more and more. When that happens, you're going to see each other more and more, and she's the one really driving it. And therefore, usually right around week 7 is when she falls in love. He says, so I called her 5 days after our first date to ask her when she will be free to meet up again. And surprisingly, she told me that she was glad that I called and we made another definite date because all the other horny freshmen at her age are blowing up her phone. And you're the only one that's acting like a fucking man. A man who has options and is in no rush. He's discerning. He's not sure if he really likes this girl. He wanted to take a few days to think about it, to wonder, yeah, she's hot, she's beautiful, we had a great time, but I really like her enough to want to see her again. That's how you'd be thinking from the end, even if it's the only thing you had going on in your life. That's how an abundant guy or girl thinks. He says, I didn't get any excuse or any wishy-washy crap. He says, Coach, you're so right. When a girl likes me, she makes it easy for me and she helps me. Our second date went perfectly, and she even kind of suggested to me that she wanted to go to a drive-in movie with me sometime. Then just one day after our second date, we had our third date, and we had a great time making out in her car while enjoying the drive-in movie. After the third date, I waited for another 5 days to contact her, and not surprisingly, I made a fourth definite date. For the fourth date, I made a romantic CD, prepared her favorite drinks in a cooler, and took her to the top of a parking garage on campus to chat and watch the sunset. Pretty cool. It's a cheap date. It's a romantic type thing. You thought about it ahead. That communicates to her that you cared enough about her and you liked her to make a really cool romantic evening. And since you're in college, you probably don't have a lot of money. Great inexpensive date. There's a parking garage right across from where I live. And I remember once, this is going back like 15 years ago, a girl I was dating. I got a hand job overlooking I-4 at the top of the parking garage at like 2 in the morning. It was fucking awesome. And I didn't tell her, and then we went back to my office later, and it was great. Very sexy woman. He says, and I didn't tell her any detail about our fourth date before I picked her up because I wanted her to wonder and anticipate about things we would do on our fourth date. During the date, she was really emotional and happy because of the romantic atmosphere, and we made out a lot. She also told me that she'd been thinking about me a lot. That's a good sign. And she was even too excited to sleep after our first kiss. As soon as she told me that, I knew I did a good job giving her enough space to wonder about me and wonder where she stands with me. At the end of the date, she finally brought up the topic of being exclusive, and I was really surprised because your book points out that girls normally do it by week 7 or 8. But anyway, I want to thank you again for writing such an awesome book and helping me to get the girl of my dream. Good job, dude. Here's a second email. Guy says, hey, Coach, you are the fucking man. I could have used your wisdom 30 years ago. Yeah, me too. But better late than never. I'm 48, recently divorced, and screwed up a recent relationship with an awesome girl because I was acting like a weak bitch. Hey, well, at least you're honest about it. He says, I've gone through your book 3 times now, and I learned something new every time. I watch at least one video a night as well, and some of them I watch over and over. I've been putting your teachings into practice, and although I've made a few mistakes, he puts in parentheses, now I know when I make them, and I try not to do them again. That's awesome. That's all it takes. You know what you're doing right, you know what you're doing wrong, and you just resolve to do it better. Repetition's the mother of skill. He says, I have 3 ladies on the go, along with 4 that are interested in blowing up my phone. He says there's not enough hours in the day, man. Remember the quote that I shared in the beginning of the video? This is what I'm talking about. Especially for you guys that are learning, it'll really help you to have other options, especially when you meet a woman that knocks your socks off, like we're going to get into with the next guy's email. Because once you got it, you don't have to have 10 women in your life. You're going to really just want one really great special lady, and you'll date and you have a good time until you meet one that just fucking blows your doors off. He says, here's a text from a girl that I met last week that I liked, and that our texting conversation didn't go... Oh, she says, here, this is what her text says. I like that our texting conversation didn't go straight to sex talk. A lot of guys do that. That's what I talk about in my book. When you're just learning this stuff, especially when it comes to texting, it's better off not doing that because you're going to get yourself into trouble. Because a lot of guys say a lot of really creepy, weird things really fast. He says, and she also continued on, I like that during our date we had lots of great conversation with eye contact. In other words, you made me feel like you really cared about me as a woman and you just weren't concerned about getting in my pants. And then she continues on, I love that. Although I wanted you to touch me, we waited even to hold hands. Remember what I talk about letting the woman touch you first. She says, the anticipation was awesome and I became attracted to you and not just your good looks. In other words, you had self-control and you acted like a guy who always has women all over him. And that made you more attractive in her eyes. You weren't like the horny the monkey at the zoo, jerking off, masturbating, throwing his jizz and feces at the people. You were like the calm monkey, slowly eating a banana, taking his time, and having the attitude of, all is well, it's all going to work out in the end. Why? Because I'm like fucking James Bond. That's what always happens. And so she says, so yes, I chose to be with you through the night, and now here we are talking about the next time with immense anticipation. And so the guy continues on, anyone who doesn't read your book or listen to your advice are fucking idiots. I still have a lot to learn, but it's fun practicing. Ask the girl who left her name and phone number on my counter this morning. All I can say is thank you, coach. You're the fucking man. Like I said, dude, it's your fucking birthright. We're designed to be this way. The key is the average guy, when he meets a girl where there's mutual interest, he literally talks her right out of liking him. It's really important to understand that time, that distance, and exhibiting self-control and letting women come and go as they please without rushing anything. And when you do this, and you just start out with a once-a-week date, as their attraction level grows, their contact starts to grow as well. It makes it really fucking easy. And it's natural. Remember, women say about 8,000 words a day. Guys say about 2,000. So women are naturally, they're nurturers, they're lovers. They want to connect. They want to bond. They just naturally do these things. And when you interact with women in a way that's natural for you and natural for them, in other words, the guy being the rock, being the mountain, and women being more like Mother Nature, they're emotional beings, makes it easy, effortless for both. And you're going to see some of the compliments that this third email, or the woman, had said to him. So he says, hey, Corey, I got some more questions. I had this second date with the rock star goddess, as you called her in your video that you did last week, kissing, touching, and sexual advances. He says, it was something I never, he put in big letters, experienced before. I came to her mansion. This was the chick driving the Lambo that we talked about. And he took his time, and I think it was like 3 or 4 hours before she started touching him. So yeah, you can, I mean, if you got the confidence, you can walk right up to a girl, start making out with her, kissing her. I mean, if it's there, I've had those experiences. If it's there, you can do that. But when you're out on a date, most women aren't going to be that forward, and it makes it really easy. The idea is you want to start a snowball effect. You want to start the snowball effect where they're chasing you. Because when a woman is chasing you, it's naturally what they want to do, and they're going to do anyways, whether they know it or not. And when a woman is chasing you and blowing up your phone and touching you all the time, when do you have to worry about rejection? It just doesn't fucking happen. He says, I went to her mansion, and I thought it will take time again to get her to open up. Because remember, it took 4 hours for her to start touching him the first date. Now see the magical effect that had on her. This girl's hot. She's got money. She lives in a fucking mansion. She drives a fucking Lambo. She's got guys throwing their dicks at her all the time. And most of them, like this was the one who she described one of her dates that she had recently. The dude was shivering on the date. He was so insecure and just totally diminished by her beauty. Women like that are just fucking dying to meet a guy that's not a pussy. He says, so he says, I came to her mansion and thought it will take time to get her to open up, but she was all over me at once. See what happens when you wait and you take your time? It's like literally, it's like, damn baby, leave the dick alone. That thing's sore. You wore all the skin off it. That's how you live your life. He says she started immediately kissing me and said I was an incredible kisser. So we hooked up and it was spectacular. Fucking good for you, dude. He says I don't know how many orgasms she had, but I barely could not count them. She scratched my skin. She was loud, wild, aggressive, outrageous. It was just incredible. Dude, I really liked it. Remember, on the first date, 4 hours before she started touching him. And then he slowly reciprocated. See how the effect, this is a second date and she's literally fucking tearing his clothes off to get him inside her. Because it's been forever since she met a man. A real man that knew how to treat her like a lady. So she could be a lady in the streets and a freak in the bed. He says, my problem here, I had some performance issues in between, and I think you named in your video about this. For any of you guys that have performance, because this is an anxiety, you're with a girl, it's like the woman of your dreams, you've never been a woman that hot. There's a video that I did, and it's also listed in the Essential Fundamental videos on my YouTube channel. But you can also Google Corey Wayne, how men can have multiple orgasms, and watch that video and do what it says. Because especially if you're in the habit of practicing that way, your dick is used to the sensations of sex and nice, slimy, slippery surfaces. It's just, sex really is about letting go. It's about not trying to orgasm or feel anything. It's just about enjoying thrusting in and out, or her riding you like a wild stallion. Remember what Confucius said, success depends upon prior preparation. Without said preparation, there's sure to be failure. And so if you're a guy who's learning this stuff and you're just starting to date the kind of quality women that really blow you away, that video, if you apply what it teaches, you'll be prepared. Even if you blow your wad right away because you're so anxious, you won't lose your erection. He says, I made no big deal out of this, and we just went along, and after a while, we had a pause, and she took a nap for a while, and then the second session of the Indoor Olympics went perfect. In my relationship, I've never had problems with it before, but I know from the time before that a long relationship that I really need time with a new woman to really relax. In other words, you're worried about it because it's the fucking hottest girl you've ever been with. He says, do you have some advice on it? Again, Google Corey Wayne, how men can have multiple orgasms, or go to the Essential Fundamentals on the homepage of my YouTube channel. Just click on Essential Fundamentals. I think it's like midway down the list. I think it's probably 60, 70 videos on that. He says, the rest of the day went perfect. We talked. She said some things like, you're so calm, cool, and collected all the time. And she also said, I could totally see us getting serious. In other words, she's like, oh my God, I finally met a man who knows how to treat me like a lady. He says, I replied, let's just date for the time being and see where it goes. And she says, every time we're together, it just seems to get better and better. I can't believe it's all so easy with you. In other words, every fucking guy I go out with is such a pussy, and all he does is bring fucking drama into my life. Dude, you need to pat yourself on the back. You are doing fucking awesome. He says, on the side, I can find nearly nothing that disturbed me. On my list of what I want in a perfect woman, she catches just about everything on my list. I told her from the about my list, and she was really anxious and excited to meet all of the criteria. What does that tell me? She's seeking your approval. In other words, she doesn't want to fuck it up because she perceives you as a hell of a fucking catch. And this is the guy, when he first came to me, was dating a woman that was just mediocre. He'd gotten out of almost a 20-year relationship that just was... And here he is dating a woman that knocks his fucking socks off, who's rich, who's successful, and she's an equal. She has similar goals, similar values, and she's fucking bad to the bone. It's like, think about it. This is your birthright. Why be so attracted to somebody if you can't have them? There's a reason why you're so drawn and so attracted to certain people. It's meant to be, but you got to do the work on yourself to get yourself in that place emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically where you're aligned and you do the right things. It's effortless and easy that way. He says, so I think that it's also, in a way, my problem now. He says, I have problems that I tend to fall into the myth of the one and not come unglued. In other words, thinking that I don't deserve a woman like this after these dates. It's like, hey, this is like the first time you in your whole life, and this guy, I think he's in his 40s, 50s, he's around my age, and that's what happens. It's like, first date, a second date, a third date, a fourth date, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. After you've been together for a while and you realize if you just show up properly and act like a man is supposed to act, she's all over you all the time, always touching you, always calling you, always wanting to be naked with you, always wanting to be close to you, always calling you, always seeking your advice, always seeking your counsel, being the rock, being the mountain, where she tells you anything and everything that's going on in her life. They want your attention all the fucking time. They won't leave you alone. It's beautiful. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's easy and effortless. But you haven't experienced that, or at least with the kind of woman that you really deep down wanted. Sure. That's why I say repetition's the mother of skill. So the more you show up and the more you date her and the more she chases and pursues you and falls for you, over time, this becomes your new paradigm. Over time, this is how the bar gets raised in your life. I'm so fucking happy for you, dude. I'm proud of you, man. He says, I really have to take my development to the next step. I like her too much, and she is by far the hottest chick I have ever had. Dude, this is your new standard. This is what you deserve. You shouldn't fuck with anybody else. But you're still learning at this point, so I don't want you ditching all the other girls that you're dating right now. Because you're at a real critical time where your game needs to be fucking tight so you don't revert back to the old wussy doormat type ways. Because if you do, boom, you'll be out, and she'll realize we just don't have any chemistry. Let's just be friends. You don't want to hear that shit. He says, I never would have thought 6 months ago I could hook up with such a girl. She told me about all the guys chasing her, and one voice in my head screams to doubt this process, that this can't be true. She will dump me, and so on. I try my best to stay unattached and to keep this turmoil on the inside, but this is very difficult. He puts in big bold letters. I know, dude. Every man that's working on, or even every woman that's watching this, that works on this part of overcoming their insecurities and their fears and doubts, it's just time and repetition of doing the right things. You will get there, dude. Look how far you come in 6 months. He says, we planned the next date immediately afterwards. He says, I know it's not what you teach, but it just kind of happened. We lived a couple hours apart. He says, I just texted her one day after the date, the exact time that I'll be at her place, and I think she will not answer me. At least it was in between the 1 and 2. Their first and second date, something like this. Yeah, a woman like this, she's got guys blowing up her phone all the time, and she even told you about them. That's why you just got to take your time and take very simple, measured steps. So he says, we'll meet Thursday in 3 days, and I'm tempted to get a further confirmation from her, but I think this is not a good idea, right? It's like, well, dude, if you've made a definite date, then there is absolutely no reason why you need to call and confirm. Actually, calling and confirming would make you look weak. If anything, I would say she might reach out to you and go, hey, are we still on? Because you've done everything right, dude. Look at the huge shift in her. 4 hours for her to start touching you in the first date. And as soon as you show up in the second date, what happens? She's fucking attacking you, tearing your fucking clothes off, screaming. She's been fantasizing about you for the whole week after your first date, about you being inside her. And that's why she's all over your ass, because you're the first guy that she's probably maybe ever met in her life that's acted this way, at least in a very long time. So I would not, if you've made a definite date, there's no reason. Just show up and hang out, have fun, and hook up. So he says, a further question are my other dates. I've lost some interest in them, but it goes so well at the moment, and I have lined up other girls. Hey, dude, what would James Bond do? Live an abundant life, man. You've only had 2 dates with this girl. There could be an ex-boyfriend that pops back. You just don't know what's going on in her life. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. You're still learning. Having the other women in your life will help keep you in an abundance mentality, and it will also do something that's very, very important. Practice. Repetition's the mother of skill. I say it all the time. And right now, you need as much practice as you can get, because the other girls will help you refine and hone your skills so you don't fuck it up with the girl that you really like. She said something on the first date that she herself could not date multiple guys, and I didn't comment on this. I think this is my kingdom, and as long as I hear nothing else from her, I will continue dating. Absolutely. And besides, it's really none of her business. And just like it's none of your business who else she's dating. She could be girlfriend material, just the distance is a problem. We both have kids. What do you think? Dude, I think it's fucking awesome. Like I said before, man, I'm proud of you. You're doing awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep reading the book. Keep applying the fundamentals. I know we got a phone session, I think next week it is. Keep hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. It's really still too soon to really look at relationship or commitment or anything like that. We can talk further about that next week in our phone session. And for the rest of you who are watching this video and you'd like to talk to me personally and get some help so I can help you have the kind of experiences that these guys are having, go to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching, whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.